What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and welcome back to another episode of Brad's Book Awards, where I'm going to be talking about all of my favorite books that I read in the year 2020, books that not necessarily came out in 2020, just books I read last year. Last episode, I talked about my top 10 favorite horror novellas. I'll link that up in the cards if you missed it. Go check that out. Every book on that list is definitely an amazing book, well worth your time reading. So definitely go check those out. But for today's category, today's episode, we're going to be talking about my top seven non-horror books, non-horror novels that I read in 2020. All right, so first up, number 7 on the list, and this book, it teeters right on the edge between sort of psychological thriller and horror, but I'm putting it on the non-horror category because it's my channel and my video, and I'll do what I want to. But seriously, for me, it was more psychological thriller than just straight up horror, but it's a fantastic book. And number 7 is Come Join the Murder by Holly Ray Garcia from Close to the Bone Publishing. This was Holly's debut novel, I believe. I really had no expectations going in. Reading it, it really knocked me back. It sort of shocked me and surprised me with how great it really was, especially for a debut. It covers grief and guilt and vengeance and regret, all those sort of emotions. This isn't a spoiler, but at the beginning, a mom, her son is killed, her husband is missing, and it's sort of her journey through all these emotions and this vengeance tale that she goes upon, seeking down who murdered her son. And it really delves into sort of the psyche of what makes a person considered to be a monster. You know, what level would you stoop to seek out vengeance on your own? Would you become the monster that you're hunting? That kind of thing. Really dark, sort of gritty, grimy stuff. I really enjoyed it. This is my number 7 pick, Come Join the Murder by Holly Ray Garcia from Close to the Bone Publishing. And coming in at number 6, I read an ebook version of this, so I'll pop up a picture. This is the author's second appearance in Brad's Book Awards. But my number 6 pick is The Neon Owl, When Shit Hits the Van by Chad Lutzke. This book, it was different than the other things I've read by Chad. He's usually a really dark, sort of grimy writer as well. This one's more sort of detective noir, but it was and a lot of dark comedy in this one. It was really funny. I laughed out loud multiple times during this. I remember when I was filming my review, I couldn't quit laughing just saying the name of the book, When Shit Hits the Van, because in the book, shit literally hits a van, and that's one of the mysteries in the book. It gets a little bit more serious than that. But as always, you know, Chad's writing, it's just, I say this every time, it's simplistic writing, but I mean that in the most complimentary way. You know, it doesn't feel like he puts any effort behind it, just so sort of natural and flows out. But I know that he spends a lot of time meticulously writing his pieces. It's just he's a natural storyteller. He always has great and fantastic characters, and this book is no different. The characters in here were great and funny and quirky, and I just love the overall, you know, the whole thing, this detective noir that was a bit serious but not serious at the same time. It really rode that fine line between being, you know, too funny and too serious. It hit the mark perfect right down the middle. Definitely check it out if you like detectives and noir, that kind of stuff, especially mixed with some dark comedy. This one, like I said, it was really funny. I couldn't even keep a straight face during my review. I had to cut multiple times and start over because I just busted out laughing like a little kid when someone says shit. I just kept giggling away. This is my number 6 pick, When The Neon Owl, When Shit Hits the Van by Chad Lutzke. Next up, coming in at number 5 is When These Mountains Burn by David Joy. This is his newest release. It came out last year in 2020. In 2019, his book Where All Light Tends to Go ended up being my favorite book I read that year. This year, his newest book is number 5. Again, it's that Southern grit, that Appalachian noir type stuff, really dealing with sort of a culture and a region and a people that America has sort of left behind, left to their own devices to sort of fend for themselves. Deals with crime and the opioid crisis, especially, that's really heavy in this book, but also in David Joy's real life where he lives. I believe he lives in North Carolina. It's a really close subject to him, and that really comes through in the book. That comes through in this, dealing with the opioid crisis and drugs and all that stuff in Appalachia. I really just like his down-to-earth, sort of gritty storytelling. It just feels real and natural, and I really like, of course, I really like the Appalachian setting. If you've been a fan of the channel for any amount of time, you know, I live in Kentucky. I'm right on the border of Appalachia. I'm just really infatuated with stories that are told in that region, and this one's no different. This was When These Mountains Burn by David Joy, his newest release. This is number 5 on my list of favorite non-horror books of 2020. Number 4, this one might shock some people because I believe in 2019 it won the Goodreads Award for Best Horror Novel, but it's not a horror novel whatsoever. And this is The Institute by Stephen King. This was, I guess, this is his newest novel. He has a short story collection since then, but I really like this one. This is definitely more sort of Stranger Things, a bit of Firestarter all mixed together. It definitely has these, you know, supernatural elements to it, but it is definitely not a horror story. It's about this group of kids who are sort of captured and taken to this facility, the Institute, and, you know, things go on from there. I don't want to give too much away, but it's definitely more psychological, I guess, thriller-ish, you could say. Definitely not horror novel whatsoever, so don't listen to the Goodreads Awards. But this was still a really fascinating, fast-paced, very entertaining read. And I've said before in videos that King, for me, King is the best at writing children, and this one's no different. I love it when he writes children characters. He always nails them. He always gets their sort of dialogue down and how they would really react in situations. And he does another great job in this one. Like I said, sort of feels Stranger Things mixed with Firestarter. And I know Stranger Things was inspired by Stephen King, and this one sort of feels like it's inspired by Stranger Things. You know, so caught as a wheel, it goes around and around. But if you haven't checked this one out, this one's a really fantastic read. This is number 4 on my list, The Institute by Stephen King. And at number 3, I guess this one is probably the only non-fiction as well, non-horror non-fiction. But this is Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. I actually listened to this one on audiobook, and Anthony Bourdain, he narrates the book. If you ever decide to pick this up, definitely go with the audiobook. It was fantastic. I love that he was telling his own story. I was a huge fan of Anthony Bourdain, his TV shows, No Reservations, and I can't think of what the other, Parts Unknown was the other one. I just loved him as a person. He was funny, and he was very smart and intelligent, but I love the culinary aspects as well. I love to cook myself. So this one was just, it was perfect. It was right up my alley. It's sort of behind the scenes in the restaurant business a little bit, and sort of, but really it's about Anthony Bourdain's sort of culinary experience from when he was a child, going through college and sort of high school and working these different jobs, these low-end, crappy restaurant jobs, to eventually, you know, going to the Culinary Institute and becoming a head chef and all that stuff. Sort of his audio biographical journey through the restaurant business. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Listening to it on audiobook, it just felt like you were sitting down with him and he was just telling you stories from his past. It was funny, it was enlightening, it was entertaining. I thoroughly enjoyed it. If you are interested in the restaurant business at all, if you were a fan of Anthony Bourdain, if you just like the culinary experience, definitely check this one out. Like I said, check out the audiobook if you can, because he's the one who narrates it. Fantastic. One of my favorite books just overall that I read last year. He has other books. I think one's called Medium Raw. I want to check that one out as well. But this is my number 3 pick. It is Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain. All right, and my number 2 pick, sort of like my horror novellas list, 1 and 2, they were such good reads, such great books. It was hard to distinguish 1 from 2. Both of them are amazing, but for myself, number 2, I am picking The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. I did not really expect the emotional gut punch that this book brings. It's sort of a fictionalized telling of the real life Dozier School for Boys, which was a real facility in the state of Florida. And surprisingly, it didn't even shut down to like 2003, I believe. It was actually open that long. This is just a horrifying look into the atrocities and the racism and all that stuff that was perpetuated in this facility. A very poignant, definitely emotional, sad read. There's at one point, sort of near the end, it just punches you right in the gut, and I wasn't expecting it, and it definitely made me emotional. A heavy, but very powerful read that I think people should pick up and read for themselves. Fantastic book. If number one wasn't on this list, this one would definitely be number one. But I really implore you to go check this one out. It's timely as well, dealing with all the racism we're dealing with now in 2020 and 2021. So it's a very powerful read. I think everyone should check it out and read it. But my number 2 pick is The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. So coming in at the top spot, my number 1 pick for non-horror novel that I read in 2020. If you've been a fan of the channel, you can probably already guess what it is. I'll go ahead and hit the drum roll. My number 1 non-horror novel that I read in 2020 is Songbirds and Stray Dogs by Megan Lucas. This book was a debut, and it is flat out amazing. It is dark and sad and poignant, but above all that, Megan's character work is top notch. She does horrible, brutal things to the characters in this book, but it matters because you care about the characters in this book. It has an emotional impact on you. You know, if the character work wasn't so well done, you wouldn't care when the bad things happened to the characters, but you get so emotionally invested in them and their story and their lives here that you just, the bad things that happen to them, it just makes you cringe and, you know, just tense up, and it's just horrible. She did something that really authors don't ever do for me, and she created a character that I absolutely hated with a passion. I sent her that message that I hated this character, and she just sent me like a smiley face back. And I hated them because not that they were poorly written or underdeveloped or anything like that. They felt so real and just despicable. I could not stand them. I wanted to do bad things to this certain character. This was also, I don't know if I said already, this was her debut. Since then, it has won some awards, not just Brad's book award, but no, it's won serious awards. I believe it won like the Indie Book Award for 2019, maybe 2020, I'm not sure. But Megan Lucas is definitely a powerhouse author, someone you should definitely check out. This has bled into a lot of horror readers have been checking this out. And there is not one person that I interact with, you know, sort of personally on Twitter or YouTube that has read this that has not enjoyed it. I believe all of my friends that I, like I said, talk to have given it 5 stars. It's that great of a book. Definitely one you want to check out. I do not think you'll be disappointed at all. This one comes with my highest recommendations that I can give. If I were to put all the books together, you know, all the novellas and non-horror and horror books that I read in 2020, this one, if not number 1, it's definitely in the top, you know, 3 of the whole entire year that I read in 2020. It's that good of a book. So my number 1 non-horror novel I read in 2020 is Songbirds and Stray Dogs by Megan Lucas. So that's it. We're done. That has been my top 7 non-horror novels that I read in 2020. All of these books are amazing. Definitely go check them out for yourselves. I don't think you'll be disappointed. But that's all I have for you guys today. So thank you for spending your time with me. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Cheers.